Let's talk about the Assault class in Battlefield 6. It's easily the worst class in the game, and in this video I want to talk about some changes that could be made to improve it and bring it up to the level of the other classes. But before we start talking about changes, we need to first establish what role the Assault class is even supposed to fulfill in the game in the first place. That way we know that the changes we're making are even beneficial at all. Now, each class in the game has two primary roles it's meant to fulfill, and in addition to that, it has two training paths that will push the player into one of those two roles. For example, the Engineer class has the two primary roles of supporting vehicles and destroying vehicles, and the two training paths within the Engineer class will make the player better at one of those two roles. So we first need to establish what two roles the Assault class is supposed to fulfill so that we can start making some changes to it. The two roles that I'm going to be using for the Assault class in this video are the two roles that it seems like DICE wants the Assault class to fulfill, but is just doing a poor job of actually pushing the class in that direction. And those two roles are objective capturing and squad positioning. When it comes to objective capturing, the attributes we want to enhance within the Assault class are things like sustainment, capture rate, and damage reduction, to really push home that this class is meant to be on the front lines, consistently contesting objectives. When it comes to the role of squad positioning, the attributes we want to enhance are things like movement speed, improved spawning options, and improved traversal options, to really enhance the player's ability to position not only themselves, but also their squad. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's start talking about some of the changes that I would make. Now we're going to start with the signature gadget, the Adrenaline Injector. I actually like the way the Adrenaline Injector is designed. The effects that it gives of increased movement speed, as well as a slight damage reduction to explosions and incendiary damage, fits in well with the roles that the Assault class is meant to fulfill, but its greatest shortcomings are the fact that the duration of the effect is quite short and you only get one. So the changes I would make to the Adrenaline Injector are to increase the duration of the effect from 8 seconds to 12 seconds, so that would be a 50% increase, and I would also give the Assault class 2 injectors that they can use. I would leave the cooldown time, the recharge time, exactly the same. It's quite long, I think it's around 30 seconds or so, and that's perfectly fine. Next we'll talk about the weapon proficiency. Assault class has proficiency with assault rifles, and it gives them a faster draw time and a faster sprint out time with assault rifles. Again, I like this on paper, although Exclusive Ace made a video about this and found that the effects were negligible at best and potentially even just non-existent at all. That was a few weeks ago, so maybe that's been changed. Assuming that it is actually functional, I have no problem with this, but it should be functional. And then we get to the signature trait, which is mission focused, which gives Assault, as well as nearby teammates, faster objective capture rate, and it means that the Assault player has a faster cooldown for their in-combat state, which means their squad mates can spawn on them sooner out of combat. I like this. I would change nothing about it. I like it a lot. The only thing I don't know about this is how much faster the objective capture rate is for the player and nearby teammates. For all we know, it could be 1% faster, but without knowing the exact numbers, I like the sound of it. The idea fits well with the roles that the Assault class is supposed to fulfill, so I'm not going to change this at all. Now we're going to get into the training paths, which is really where you start to push the class in one of its two roles. We're going to start with the Breacher training path, and for the purposes of this video, this is going to be the training path that will push the Assault class into the role of objective capturing, which it already kind of does. So the level 0 upgrade, the one you get right off the bat, is extra grenades, and now that it actually functions, which it wasn't for a while, this one is perfectly fine. I would not change it. You get +1 throwable, and you get +1 to your 40mm grenades as well. The level 1 upgrade is Agile Shooter, which allows you to move faster while shooting. While I don't hate this one, I think a better benefit to give the Assault class would be the ability to resupply from supply bags 15% faster, and that would apply both to ammo as well as equipment. Again, this change would be made to increase the sustainability of the Assault class so that they can more consistently provide fire on objectives and heavily contested contested areas. The level 2 upgrade is Unrelenting Reload, which gives you 15% faster reload on grenade launchers and incendiary shotguns. Again, I have absolutely no issue with this. I think it works well, and I think it makes sense for the role of objective capturing, allowing the assault class to spend less time reloading and more time firing their weapons, dealing damage, that sort of thing. Then we get to the class ability, and the class ability is shared between both training paths like it is on all of the classes. So the changes I make to this one will apply to the other training path as well. The current class ability is Rally Squad, which gives you and your nearby squad mates the adrenaline injector effect, and the only difference is that for you, the effect can be extended with kills. Again, this is not the worst thing ever, but it just doesn't feel that special to me, especially considering that the signature gadget for the class is already the adrenaline injector, so it's basically just the same thing again. So we're going to change this. I would rework the class ability to make it so that when it is activated, the player and any teammate within, say, 10 meters of the player gets a ×2 capture rate bonus for 30 seconds, allowing the player, as well as any teammates in the vicinity, to capture objectives more quickly and more efficiently. Now, the exact numbers of this effect could be tweaked to balance it if it was proven to be too powerful at 2 times capture rate for 30 seconds. It could be brought down to 1.5 times capture rate for 20 seconds or whatever. The exact numbers could be tweaked to make sure that it is properly balanced. But the idea of enhancing the player and teammates near the player's capture rate, I think fits well into the role that Assault is supposed to play within the game. Next, we're going to talk about the Frontliner training path, which we are going to be pushing into the role of squad positioning. The level 0 effect of Frontliner is Adrenaline Rush, which gives squad mates 2 seconds of the adrenaline effect when spawning on you or your deployed beacon. The change I would make to this one is going to require me to talk about the deploy beacon for just a moment. Now, for those of you who are unaware, the way the deploy beacon in Battlefield 6 works is that it has 4 spawns, with 1 spawn being dedicated to each player within your squad. So when a player spawns on your beacon, they have used their spawn and they cannot spawn on it again, even if it is still active in the world. The way I would change how the deploy beacon works is I would give it 4 spawns like it currently has, but I would give it a pool of 3 spawns that can be used by anyone within the squad any number of times within those 3 times, and reserve 1 spawn for the player that has placed the beacon. Now, if we return to the Frontliner training path, the level 0 effect I would give the Assault class would be double spawns for their deploy beacons. So in this case, rather than having 4 spawns per beacon, it would be 8 spawns per beacon, with 7 being given to anyone that spawns on them within the squad any number of times, and again 1 spawn being reserved for the player that has placed the beacon to ensure that they are still allowed to spawn there guaranteed. The level 1 effect for the Frontliner training path is Soft Landing, which reduces your fall damage. This one is also pretty much garbage. We have parachutes, we have the combat roll. There are ways to entirely remove fall damage altogether, so having a perk that reduces fall damage is really not all that useful. It also just doesn't really allow the Assault class to do anything specific that Assault is supposed to be able to do. I mean, how often are you falling into a position that's advantageous? I just really fail to consider the possibility that that's really consistently enhancing your ability to be an Assault player. The change I would make to the level 1 effect here, I'm calling extended ladders, and it would allow the Assault player to extend the Assault ladder twice as far as they normally can. Now again, the exact number here doesn't really matter because it could be tweaked to be balanced within the game, but the idea is that once the player unlocks this benefit, they can extend their ladders further than they normally could. The level 2 effect for the Frontliner training path is Quick Recovery, which gives you 50% sooner and faster health regeneration, which is a good effect, but again, it doesn't feel all that specific to the Assault class. Literally all of the classes would benefit from this, and I don't know that it really allows the Assault class to perform its role within the game better than without it. Because this is the level 2 effect, and it's meant to be a very powerful effect that you get somewhat later into each match, we're going to make this the Pathfinder effect from Battlefield 5. Now, for those of you who didn't play Battlefield 5, the Pathfinder effect was a subclass for the Recon class, which allowed the player to spawn not only on spawn beacons that had been placed by their squad, but any friendly spawn beacon on the map that had been placed by their team. It greatly enhances the player's ability to get around the map and position their squad, and I think it would fit in very, very well with Battlefield 6 and the role of the Assault as a squad positioning class. I think it would also synergize very well with the level 0 effect that we've changed on this training path, which gives the spawn beacon more spawns per placement, because if other players outside of your squad are going to be able to spawn on your beacon all of a sudden, you're going to need more spawns per beacon. And then of course the class ability for the Frontliner training path would be the same as what we changed it to before. So those are the changes I would make to the training paths, and just to make sure that it's communicated to the player what their intended roles are, I'm actually going to rename the training paths, and I think that the Breacher now feels a lot more like the Frontliner. I think that's an applicable title to give it, so we're going to rename that one Frontliner. And then we're going to rename Frontliner to Flanker to really communicate to the player that this training path is meant to position them and their squad more effectively. Now we need to move on to the Assault-specific gadgets, starting with the Weapon Sling, as DICE likes to call it, but it is simply the ability as Assault to use 2 primary weapons. Remove it from the game. It puts not only the player at a disadvantage, but it puts the team at a disadvantage. It puts the player at a disadvantage because it gives them significantly reduced ammo for both primaries, making them significantly less able to contribute to a fight long term. It drastically reduces their sustainability as a player, but it also negatively affects the team because it means that that player hasn't picked a more powerful gadget that is specific to the Assault class. Remove the Weapon Sling from the game, it isn't good. The second gadget is the Assault Ladder, and it's great. I would make no changes to it. Then we have the X95 Breach Launcher, which is very underwhelming. I would honestly just change this to a concussion launching grenade launcher that works in the traditional sense, where it fires a grenade that just blows up regularly and it concusses enemies within a certain radius of the explosion. Next we have the M320 High Explosive. I wouldn't change it, it works great. And the same for the M320 Thermobaric, I wouldn't change it, it works great. We also have the Deploy Beacon. Again, other than the changes I made earlier about how the spawning works, where rather than each player within the squad being able to spawn on it one time, I would make it so that there is a pool of 3 spawns that can be used by any of the squad mates any number of times within those 3, and then 1 reserved for the player that places the deploy beacon. Then we get to the SS-26 Incendiary Shotgun. It's not good. Anyone that's used it knows that it's really bad, but at the same time, I can't really think of any way they could improve it without making it significantly overpowered. It seems like balancing, Dragon's Breath shotguns in games is very challenging, where it's either basically useless or it's really overpowered. And honestly, I guess if it has to be one way, I'd rather it be underpowered, because it can be very annoying to go up against an overpowered Dragon's Breath shotgun in a game. The only adjustment I could potentially see them making that would maybe increase its utility is I would increase the duration of the burn effect that it applies to surfaces that you shoot it at. That way it could potentially be useful for game modes like Rush or maybe Breakthrough, where there's a specific area that a large portion of the enemy team is trying to get to, so that you can kind of have some sort of like area denial, essentially. The problem is that it's just simply worse than the incendiary grenade at that role. And even if you were to increase the duration of the effect, I still don't think it would be better than the incendiary grenade. But again, I can't think of any really better way to balance it, so it's fine as is, it doesn't really matter. I guess the one change I would make to this one though is it should be undermountable, considering it's based off the MAS-26 shotgun, which was developed entirely to be undermounted. Obviously it can be used standalone, but it was a shotgun designed to be undermounted, so it should be undermountable like the M320s are. I think that'd be cool. Because we got rid of the weapon sling, I'm going to add in a few new gadgets for the Assault class to kind of make up for that. The first one being a dedicated breaching shotgun gadget. It seems like a big motivation for them allowing Assault to have 2 primaries in the first place was to give the Assault class a breaching shotgun secondary, basically. So just give them a dedicated breaching shotgun gadget. The way I see this working is it could either be modeled after the Serbu Super Shorty, or just reuse the model for the SS-26 and just make it buckshot rather than incendiary. And the way I see this working is that it would have a very limited killing potential, so very limited range where it can deal significant damage, making it significantly worse than the primary shotguns, which it should be because it's a gadget, but then give it enhanced utility by making it do significantly higher damage to cover, and specifically soft cover, things like plywood, pallets, boxes, corrugated sheet metal, any of the forms of cover in the game that can typically be destroyed by, just regular bullets. Make this particular shotgun gadget do significant damage to those forms of cover. Make this gadget obliterate those forms of cover so that it can actually be used to breach. And again, I would also make this option under barrel mountable so that you can have an under barrel master key shotgun, because that's cool. And then possibly another gadget I thought of that could work well for the assault class is what I'm calling the command uplink. It would be a placeable gadget, much like the deploy beacon, but it would be placeable on objective zones, and it would be treated as a friendly player on the objective. So imagine a scenario where the assault is alone on an objective. They're capturing the objective at the rate of one person, and the screen says that there's one person on the point. If they were to place this gadget on the point, it would capture at the rate of 2 people, and it would say that there were 2 people on the point. I think in order to keep it from becoming extremely overpowered and abused, you could easily implement a proximity placement limit, much like the mines already use in the game, so that system already exists within the game, just so that you don't have 10 of these placed on an objective simultaneously. I would also make the physical model fairly large, give it something like a flashing light and a beeping noise so that it's easy to find, so that they can't be hidden on objectives very effectively and just annoy the enemy player by either continually backcapping a point or slowing down the progress of an enemy capture. They should be easy to find and destroy, that's perfectly fine, but I think giving the assault class the ability to further enhance their ability to capture objectives is an interesting idea. I think it could fit in with the game. And then finally, we get to the assault-specific throwables, the stun grenade and the flashbang. These grenades in their current state are very weak, and the main reason for that is because, for whatever reason, DICE wanted to get creative and do things a little differently. I can appreciate that, I can applaud that, but unfortunately it just didn't really pan out. The way to fix these grenades is pretty simple. You just make them work like they do in every other first-person shooter ever made. The stun grenade should significantly reduce the player's ability to aim and move, so reduce their aim sensitivity and reduce their movement speed. And the flashbang should completely blind and deafen the player, so make the screen completely opaque white rather than just kind of blurry white that you can still clearly see what's happening, and make them completely deaf with the tinnitus sound effect. The main problem with these throwables in the game currently is that they really don't impair the player at all, so there's really never a reason to use them over just regular frag grenades. But that does it. That's the overview of the things that I would change with the assault class. I think those changes would make the assault class not only more compelling against the other classes, but also just does a better job of pushing the assault class specifically into the 2 roles that it's meant to fulfill within the gameplay. On the off chance, on that 0.0001% chance that any of the developers see this video, please use any of these ideas. I'd love to see any of these make it into the game. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you later.